Hello, darling viewers. It's Jen here at Check Her Joy, and this time I'm doing another Top 5 Wednesday. As always, the Goodreads group is in the description below if you want to check that out. This week's topic is our favorite science fiction and fantasy from other media, so not just books and comics. And I adore science fiction and fantasy, like that is my jam. So this was a really hard list to do, and there was really amazing science fiction and fantasy that just didn't quite make the cut on this one. So I have picked my favorite television shows and movies that I love, and I split these up into two lists. One is ones that are based off of books or comics, and then the second one is going to be ones that are primarily television and movies. And then maybe they have books and comics based off of the TV show movie, but those came first. Okay, my first pick is Young Frankenstein. This is a Mel Brooks movie with Gene Wilder in it, and it is a sequel to Frankenstein. Well, specifically the old Universal Frankenstein movie from, I think, the 30s or 40s or something. But, also based off the book by Mary Shelley. So in this, we have a descendant of Victor Frankenstein who created the original creature, and he's kind of rebelling against his family's legacy and wants to make his own name in science and have his own discoveries. But then he gets called back to Transylvania when he inherits the family estate, and while he's there, he discovers his great-grandfather's journals detailing how to do the creature, and this guy just can't resist. So he makes another creature himself, and this is a Mel Brooks comedy. It is absolutely hysterical. It is filmed entirely in black and white, and I love this movie so much. I have grown up watching it and rewatching it, and it's just, I adore it. I simply adore Young Frankenstein. So definitely check this out if you guys haven't already. The next one on my list is the television show Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. This is a 90s sitcom where we follow Clark Kent, who is Superman, but mostly we're following Clark the human, he's still an alien, but Clark's human side to him, just trying to be normal, not trying to be the alien with superpowers. But also, he's an alien with superpowers. So we meet him when he first goes to the Daily Planet, and he first meets Lois Lane, and they start working together, and how they slowly start this romance and fall in love, and just the complications of keeping that a secret. And we also get to see him, rush off and be Superman and save the day and everything. I love the mix of this television show. I love the fact that it is a television show, so we get to expand a lot more and really dig into Clark's character and his motivations and what's going on with Lois and how she's reacting and feeling, and I adore it so much. I love it. I love it so much. I love Superman, and this show is a big reason why I love Superman. So, continuing with the superhero theme, I've also picked Thor Ragnarok. So this movie features the Hulk and Thor, but most importantly, it features Loki, which is obviously the best part. This is definitely my favorite MCU movie. It's funny, it's quirky, and it still has a very real personal touch to it. So this is the third Thor movie and the fourth time that we see Thor and Loki together, and we really see their relationship kind of growing and shifting. So we've gone through this period where they were tight, super close brothers, and then Loki betrays him, and with this continuing cycle of Thor trusting Loki, Loki betraying him, Thor not trusting him, slowly trusting him again, and repeating. And this one, things shake up a bit when Hela, Odin's firstborn and Thor's older sister, shows up and tries to take over Asgard, and Thor and Loki have to decide whether or not they're going to work together to defeat her, or keep squabbling and go their own way. Also, the Hulk's in this one, and it features the Planet Hulk storyline, where they're on Sakaar, and the Hulk becomes this gladiatorial hero, and I love that. I also love the fact that he's been the Hulk for 2 years, and he's grown, and he's talking, and he's got his own identity, and he's not just the monster that Bruce Banner turns into. Also, Bruce Banner shows up, and we get to see how Bruce Banner feels about having been the Hulk for 2 years. It has an amazing soundtrack, and it's really funny. Really funny, guys. So, I love Thor Ragnarok. More comic-based picks, and I have the Sabrina the Teenage Witch television show from the 90s with Melissa Joan Hart playing Sabrina. So these are based off the character Sabrina Spellman from the Archie comics. And Sabrina is a witch, and in this series, she is half mortal, and she's living in a house with her two aunts and the cat Salem, who is actually a wizard who is stuck in a feline body. So I loved the show growing up, watching it like every morning. And Sabrina's just a few years older than I am, so really enjoying her high school slash college hijinks and what goes on with her relationship with Harvey, and trying to understand her magic and learning how to do it. Plus, she can do magic, which what middle school slash high schooler doesn't want to learn how to do magic? And it's just really funny, and I love Sabrina as a character. She's super likable, and who doesn't want a cat that can talk? And my final pick is the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. These are based off the Harry Potter books by J.K. Rowling. It includes the first 8 Harry Potter movies and also Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Picked Fantastic Beasts because it's not just a straight adaptation of the books. It's its own thing. It's a prequel to the Harry Potter stories, and it follows Newt Scamander, who wrote one of Harry's textbooks. But we get to see Newt running around New York trying to gather up all of his magical creatures after they've been set loose in New York. And we get to find out about the magical community that exists in New York. Like, I love the magical community, period, that J.K. Rowling created, both in England and New York. Okay, moving on to my actual top 5 picks for science fiction and fantasy in other media, so not book-based at all. Although I think most of these have at least comic adaptations of them. So my first pick is Back to the Future. This is a trilogy of movies starring Michael J. Fox, and he is a time traveler. His character, Marty McFly, is friends with this mad scientist, and the mad scientist figures out how to create a time travel machine using this car called the DeLorean, and they go back into the past. Marty gets to meet his parents when they're in the 50s and make sure that they actually get married, and Marty becomes, alive and doesn't get erased out of existence. Later stories send them back into the 1800s, and in one of them he goes to the future, and I love it. It is so funny and so cool, and I grew up watching these since I can remember, and just wanting flying cars, and even just to travel back in time, like to be able to go back to the 1800s and see what things were like. I kind of explore your family in that way also, because they're all of Marty's journeys take place within his town that his family has been a part of forever, so like he gets to go back and meet his ancestors or meet his future children, and I love it. It's just kind of quirky and fun and so stylistically cool. That is the thing about this. When I was a kid, I thought this was the coolest thing ever. Like, the way that Marty acts, even like the 80s was cool. So my next pick is Third Rock from the Sun. This is a 90s sitcom that features a crew of aliens trying to observe humans and how we interact, and they do this by posing as a typical normal human family, except they're outer space aliens, so they don't quite understand what normal is, and so it is really, really funny. So I love John Lithgow in this, is trying to be the head commander and wrangle all these guys, and just all of the characters are hilarious. I grew up watching this in the 90s when it was first airing, and really relating to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is he's a kid on the outside and a teenager, and that's what he looks like to everybody else, but he's actually the oldest member of the crew and has the most experience. But everybody kind of sometimes seems to forget it because of how he looks on the outside. Or when he's interacting with others, like he has to go to high school. And I love that part of the show so much. And it is so funny. And especially as a kid watching this, and I was still trying to figure out what the adult world was like. And so this was kind of a clue into, hey, this is how things operate, and this is how things don't necessarily operate either. Like, adults are complicated, and not everything is quite as it looks. My third pick is Quantum Leap. This is a early 90s / really late 80s sci-fi show that features Sam Beckett, who is a time traveler. But Sam doesn't just time travel as in he gets transported to a certain place, but that he leaps into somebody else's life and somebody else's body. So when he travels back in times, he looks like somebody else, and he has to live out somebody else's life and try to fix it. And that's how he gets to leap out of there. It's definitely got this magical element to it, as we don't know why Sam is actually leaping into these bodies, why it's functioning that way. It sounds like that's not what they thought was going to happen. And they also don't know who's controlling Sam's leaps, whether it's completely random or if there's some entity out there a god or an alien creature or something that is controlling his leaps and making him go into these people who need help. So this show is kind of cool for a couple of reasons. One, we have Sam, who is super kind and intelligent and understanding, and the way that when he jumps into somebody, like if he leaps into a woman or a black man or something, how he tries to understand them and really fights racism and sexism when he can, but at the same time trying to fit in so that he doesn't get stand out too much. Like he looks physically and sounds like the person that everybody thinks he is, but he also doesn't want to get that person thrown into, say, an insane asylum or something. He also has an observer, a hologram, Al from the future, who is Sam's best friend, who is there to guide him and has some inside track on what actually happened historically and what they think he's supposed to do. And Al's a hysterical character to begin with. On the whole, I really adore this show and love it, and right now I'm in the middle of binge watching it again. So my next pick is Star Trek, and it's pretty much just all of Star Trek. I love it. This is probably my first fandom. It's one that I've grown up watching since I was very, very little, like probably since the day I was born. I just always have had Star Trek in my family, and it's the first one where I started getting into a fandom and really getting into not just watching the television show, but imagining what it would be like to be on a ship and explore space, to be in a crew, what I would do, how I would interact with, aliens or an android on the ship, and then also getting into the books for the show. Just everything that there existed for Star Trek, like being part of that. My dad was also a Trekkie, and so that was very much a part of who I was as a child and really why I love sci-fi and fantasy. And the show is just so much fun and it's optimistic. And it's this version of the future where things could be better, but things aren't always perfect. And there's so much diversity in this world and the aliens and the different technology, which I love. So, yeah. My favorite Star Trek crew is Next Generation, by the way, but I super love all of it. And my number one pick is probably not surprising to anyone, as I'm wearing a TARDIS t-shirt and have Doctor Who books behind me. But that is Doctor Who, which is a British sci-fi show about an alien called the Doctor who time travels in a blue police box, which is his time machine, that is wicker on the inside, and he picks up strays, usually human females, to accompany him. And just goes on these adventures and saves the day and is heroic. And just the fact that it's a time machine and also a spaceship, so it can literally go anywhere. You can go back to the very beginning of the universe, the Big Bang, or you can go to the absolute end of the universe. You can go to Earth in the modern day, or you can go to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. And I love it. And each episode, each story has its own feel. You could have a Western one week, and the next week have alien robots battling on Alpha Centauri or whatever, and I adore it. I love the Doctor as this character who is a scientist and is smart and intelligent, and he will fight when necessary, but whenever possible, he is going to try to logic things out and reason with people, and I love that about him. And I love the fact that he takes others with him, so it's not just the Doctor traveling, but he'll take humans, or he'll take aliens, or he'll take a robotic dog along with him, and I adore all of it. And I super love the TARDIS also, as this not just a ship, but also this living being that seems to have her own mind about where she wants to go and what she wants to do and what she wants to see. And I love all the possibilities that exist within Doctor Who, and it is amazing. So amazing. Like, Doctor Who is anything that sci-fi could possibly be. It can be fantasy, or it can be hard science fiction, or it could just be a historical drama. So there is my list of my absolute favorite science fiction and fantasy in television and movies. I really love these, but they aren't my only favorites. I know that some really amazing science fiction and fantasy got cut. I really do love Star Wars and Firefly, guys. I do. I love them, but they just not as much as, say, Back to the Future. So let me know in the comments below, what are your favorite science fiction and fantasy across television and movies, or other media also? And do you absolutely love or hate anything that was on my list? So peace out, guys. I love you, and keep reading. Bye!